It's almost expected at this point that a popular EA release will find itself under the limelight of controversy at some point. The latest EA title to face controversy is Apex Legends, a game that launched to great reception until its reputation was marred by the game's recent first attempt at pushing the envelope of the game's monetization. The title was already teetering the line with things like loot box implementation, an in-game shop, and premium battle passes, but they really pushed things over the edge with the introduction of the Iron Crown event. This is an event where the ultimate goal is to obtain an heirloom rarity event-specific limited time item called Raven's Bite. The way this is all set up basically forces players to buy 24 event-specific loot boxes in order to complete this collection of 24 event-specific epics and legendaries before being granted access to the ability to buy Raven's Bite for another $35 worth of Apex coins. We are talking about a paywall for a limited time rare item of over $200 in loot boxes and coins, which can be brought down to $170 if you do the challenges that nets you 2 of these event-specific loot boxes through gameplay, and if you then buy the right kinds of Apex coins packs. So that's pretty much where we're at with Apex Legends, and suffice to say that the backlash against EA has been swift. It didn't take long before this controversy became known far and wide, prompting EA and Respawn to respond via a blog post that was published yesterday on August 16th, 2019. I would love nothing more than to tell you that the response and apology here came across as genuine and sincere, that the changes they made to the monetization system was enough to mitigate this situation, but if anything, I'd say they've added gasoline to fire. So here's what the blog post said. Hey everyone, at launch we made a promise to players that we intend to do monetization in a way that felt fair and provided choice to players on how they spent their money and time. A core decision during development of Apex Legends was that we wanted to make a world-class battle royale game in quality, depth, progression, and important for today's conversation, how we sell stuff. With the Iron Crown event, we missed the mark when we broke our promise by making Apex packs the only way to get what many consider to be the coolest skins we have released. We have heard you and have spent a lot of time this week discussing the feedback and how we structure events in the future, as well as changes that we will make to Iron Crown. To get right into it, here are the changes we're making. Starting on August 20th, we'll be adding and rotating all 12 of the event-exclusive legendary items into the store over the course of the final week of the event for the regular legendary skin cost of 1,800 Apex coins. You will still be able to purchase Iron Crown Apex packs for 700 Apex coins if you choose. The store schedule for the week will be as follows. And then right here we have a screenshot showing the schedule for how they'll be rotating these legendary items throughout the last week of Iron Crown. Basically, from August 20th to August 27th, every 3 days will feature 5 different legendaries available for purchase for 3 cycles from a pool of 12 legendaries. The post then continued. For future collection events, we will provide more ways to obtain items than just buying Apex packs. A couple other things I'd like to address. We need to be better at letting our players know what to expect from the various event structures in Apex Legends. Over the last 6 months, we have been learning a lot about operating a live service free-to-play game, and one of the takeaways from this week, beyond what was mentioned above, is that our messaging for expectations needs to be clearer. This is a different event structure than the Legendary Hunt from Season 1, and it will be different from planned future upcoming events. We're learning more each day on what works, what doesn't, and how to provide the best possible experiences and content to all of you. With Apex Legends, it is very important to us that we don't sell a competitive advantage. Our goal has not been to squeeze every last dime out of our players, and we have structured the game so that all players benefit from those who choose to spend money. Events like Legendary Hunt or Iron Crown exist so that we can continue to invest in creating more free content for all players. This week has been a huge learning experience for us, and we're taking the lessons forward to continue bringing the best possible experience to all of you. Thanks again for being a part of the Apex Legends community. We look forward to continuing to release awesome new stuff for everyone to enjoy. Drew McCoy, Respawn Entertainment. Okay, so there is a lot to unpack here, so let's break this down, shall we? There are a number of reasons for why the proposed solution here is pretty frickin' terrible. I've already seen a lot of people in forums praise EA and Respawn for this, as if they have done right by the community, but allow me to put all of this into perspective. First things first, what they're doing here in no way, shape, or form addresses the core issue with the Iron Crown event. The fact that its crowning jewel, this rare cosmetic item called Raven's Bite, is still paywalled behind hundreds of dollars. You still have to get all 24 of the event-specific items in order to unlock the ability to pay $35 extra to buy Raven's Bite. This is one aspect that has gone completely unsolved, so anyone who wants Raven's Bite will still have to shell out an exorbitant amount of cash. The only difference now is that along the way you can choose individual Iron Crown legendary items you wish to purchase rather than having to roll for them. But guess what? If your goal is to get Raven's Bite, you'd actually be doing yourself a disservice by purchasing individual Iron Crown legendaries, because whereas an Iron Crown loot box costs $7 worth of Apex coins, an upfront Iron Crown legendary item purchase will set you back 1,800 Apex coins, which is equivalent to a ridiculous $18. We are talking about 2.5 times the cost for skipping the inconvenience of random chance, 2.5 times the cost for non-random purchases of Iron Crown items. And you'll have to get all 24 event-specific items to get Raven's Bite no matter what, so the cheapest route would be to just purchase 24 loot boxes, 22 if you do challenges, at $7 a pop, rather than a combination of $7 on loot boxes and $18 on individual item purchases. Iron Crown loot boxes don't produce duplicates and only yield one Iron Crown item at a time, so you'll be buying a maximum of 24 loot boxes for $168 worth of coins before you complete your Iron Crown collection, and then get to spend an additional $35 on Raven's Bite for a grand total of $203. The second you buy an individual item for $18 along the way is the second you'll have made the cost of Raven's Bite more expensive. Buying so much as a single non-random legendary will increase the cost of Raven's Bite from $203 to $214, and that price can go up much higher if you make multiple $18 purchases for non-random legendaries. The only people who get to benefit from these far more expensive, non-random legendary purchases are people who have no interest in Raven's Bite, but let's face it, given this is an heirloom rarity item advertised as the centerpiece of the Iron Crown event, plenty of people will be drawn to it. But even those who genuinely don't care about Raven's Bite and only want some of the 24 epics and legendaries are put in a precarious position. The fact of the matter is that $18 for a single skin is a ridiculous ask, so they might choose to take their chances with loot boxes instead because they're 2.5 times cheaper, meaning that if they can get a desired item in 2 tries of loot boxes, they'll actually have saved money. There's a gamble there to be made. And if they don't get a desired item after 2 tries, well, there goes $14 on top of additional money you'd have to spend to earn the item you actually desire, whether it be through more loot box purchases or through an $18 direct purchase. On the other hand, if people aren't feeling so lucky with their chances with loot boxes, that's still a painful $18 to shell out for one skin. Again, 2.5 times the price of rolling the dice on loot boxes. Another important point is that not all of the Iron Crown's 24 event-specific items are available for individual purchase. The 24 Iron Crown-specific items are comprised of a combination of epics and legendaries, 12 of each, and as stated in the update, only 12 of the 24 items, only the legendaries, are being sold individually and non-randomly, meaning that the event's other 12 items, the epic items, can still only be earned via purchased loot boxes. What this means is that if there's a specific Iron Crown item that you want and it happens to be an epic rarity item, you'll have no choice but to spin the slot machine and take that 1 in 24 chance gamble, or 1 in 22 if you did the in-game challenges. The cherry on top to all of this is the insidious limited time schedule for these individual non-random legendary purchases. So the Iron Crown event is currently approaching its final week, as the event comes to an end on August 27th. The ability to purchase non-random legendaries Legendaries hasn't gone live yet, but it will on August 20th, which gives people exactly 1 week, the final week of the event, to make these purchases lest they miss out on these items forever. So that limited week-long time frame is manipulative enough, but on top of all of that, rather than just making all 12 Iron Crown Legendaries available throughout that whole week to give people 8 whole days to make a purchase decision, they've broken the time limit down even further by separating and rotating these items in 3-day chunks, while Legendaries for Pathfinder, Lifeline, and Wraith will be available for 6 of the 8 days due to how this item rotation loops back around. Legendaries for Watson, Alternator, Gibraltar, Mirage, Bloodhound, R99, RE45, Peacekeeper, and G7 will only be available for their designated 3 days, which adds further pressure and further incentive for people to make impulsive purchases because of FOMO, fear of missing out, because there's such a limited time frame before this all completely goes away. They could have easily made it so that all 12 of these Iron Crown Legendaries are available for all 8 final days, but that would just be a little too reasonable, wouldn't it? So yeah, from completely ignoring complaints about Ravensbite's insane paywall, charging a ridiculous $18 for the convenience of skipping randomization, only making half of Iron Crown's items available for direct purchase while confining the rest to loot boxes, to the manipulative, multifaceted, limited time scheduling, I'd be hard-pressed to call this an adequate response or anything resembling a proper apology. If anything, all this is doing is adding additional layers to an already baffling and confusing scheme. They've only made it harder for consumers to keep track of real-world value for these items. They've only obscured context and perspective while enacting changes that don't really fix much of anything. It's a con within an apology. Much of the Apex Legends community sees it this way too, and are none too happy about what's being perceived as a piss-poor and disingenuous attempt at an apology. One of the most upvoted and trending posts in the Apex Legends subreddit right now, with over 13,000 upvotes and a 95% approval rate, shows this video right here highlighting the pattern of boilerplate apologies EA and its studios have made over the years that kind of act as mirror images of Apex Legends' recent apology post.
We are deeply sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. Sorry. We're sorry. Sorry. We're sorry.
Indeed, we have been through this cycle over and over again, from EA's all-too-infamous sense of pride and accomplishment justification for Star Wars Battlefront 2, their laughably weak claim that they didn't intend to make slot machines, to their fake vows to not repeat the same mistake again and do better moving forward, among many other things. Similar statements can be found all throughout this apology post, which is signed by Drew McCoy from Respawn, project lead of Apex Legends. Hard to say how much of this letter is EA and how much of this letter is Respawn, but either way, it all feels like pretty typical PR talk. It seriously baffles me that they actually expect anyone to believe that, quote, our goal has not been to squeeze every last dime out of our players. Anyone can say that, but such statements will only carry weight if actions reflect that, and the Iron Crown event with its ludicrous monetization schemes and pricing models and the piss-poor adjustments made post-backlash do not evoke the sense that there wasn't ill intent involved. The post then proceeded with, quote, and we have structured the game so that all players benefit from those who choose to spend money. Events like Legendary Hunt or Iron Crown exist so that we can continue to invest in creating more free content for all players. See, everyone's well aware that Apex Legends is a free-to-play game and that it does have regular content updates. We understand that it does have to include some form of monetization to pay for itself, but let's not act like the game wasn't already raking in tons of money prior to the Iron Crown event. By EA's own admission in their latest earnings call, Apex Legends saw great financial performance prior to the Iron Crown event. The loot boxes and in-game shop and premium battle passes that already exist, on top of the backing of EA, this multi-billion-dollar corporation, are more than adequately paying for the game's production costs. Nobody's saying that you can't monetize the Iron Crown event. We're saying you didn't have to take monetization that far to the extent that you did. You didn't have to paywall the heirloom item behind ludicrous loot box and coins purchases. You didn't have to price loot boxes and direct purchases so high. There are so many ways a better balance could have been achieved across the board. If after the backlash you had adjusted Iron Crown direct purchases so that all 24 items are available for the entire event at $7 a pop instead of $18, reduced Iron Crown loot box prices from $7 to $3 to $4 maybe, eliminated the awful paywalls behind Raven's Bite and drastically reduced that item's ludicrous $35 price point, and implemented ways for players to earn Iron Crown rewards via gameplay rather than completely paywalling everything, discourse surrounding the game would be a whole lot more positive after the launch of this event. Sure, this proposed model may not rake in as much money, but it will certainly rake in more than enough to keep the game alive while keeping the community happy. But instead, the folks over at EA and Respawn went for stingy and nefarious adjustments to monetization, as well as an empty apology that's only got people thinking things might get worse moving forward. It's also disconcerting that they think their biggest mistake with Iron Crown was that the messaging for expectations wasn't clear, rather than acknowledging that the thing to blame here is the way the entire event was structured to heavily emphasize monetization. The thing is, Respawn, even if you tell us to expect something, if that something is scummy in its implementation, people are still going to get riled up. It's not about what you tell us, it's about what you do. Respawn also emphasized that it's important that Apex Legends doesn't sell a competitive advantage, but I'll say this again, a microtransaction system not being pay to win and being cosmetics only does not automatically grant it immunity from scrutiny, even in a free-to-play title. As I've said many times before, cosmetic items have significant emotional value for people, especially in an online environment where you can aesthetically show off. Cosmetic microtransactions may not throw the game off balance, but they can be exploited to manipulate people into spending money in more subtle and potentially more powerful ways than pay-to-win might. Not to mention that cosmetics and Apex Legends are a core part of its reward system. They only rewards cosmetics, and so that's a big part of the gameplay loop. So by locking all of an event's rewards behind exorbitant real money cost, behind loot boxes and all these different things with no gameplay avenue to earn them, they've essentially marred the design integrity of the event and its reward system for people who can't or will not pay up. I'm sorry, but we are long past the point of its cosmetics only being a valid excuse for implementing scummy in-game purchases. Moving on, here's another Reddit user raising caution in a thread with a headline that reads, "Do not fall for it, remember this?" while highlighting a screenshot of an article featuring an EA executive apologizing for Battlefront 2's loot box fiasco and stating how they got it wrong and promised to do better next time. Except even after Battlefront 2, EA has intentionally continued to poke and prod at ways to re-implement nefarious loot boxes and similarly insidious monetization schemes into their games, with what they try to pull with Apex Legends being one of many recent examples, all of which goes to show that EA's apologies remain as empty and meaningless as they've always been. And just like what happened with Battlefront 2, we are seeing a similar style of messaging in Apex Legends' apology, with statements like, "With the Iron Crown event, we missed the mark when we broke our promise by making Apex packs the only way to get what many consider to be the coolest skins we have released. And this week has been a huge learning experience for us, and we're taking the lessons forward to continue bringing the best possible experience to all of you." I guess only time will tell whether such words will be put into action in future events and updates, but the way the Iron Crown event has been handled, and the way EA and Respawn responded has not inspired much confidence. Another Reddit user aptly pointed out how this whole situation ties into what Torolf Ehrenstrom talked about in his disgusting, wailing keynote about a concept called anchoring. Here it is from the man himself.
Anchoring is fun. Anchoring means that when we don't know the price of stuff, the first price we hear suggested for it becomes our anchor. And then we compare everything to that. Some games, immediately when you're in the tutorial, they suggest to you, you should buy this good IAP for 50 euros or something like that. I go like, oh, that's expensive, I'll never do that. Of course, no. And I expect them to say no. Then again, I come back like a few sessions later and suggest they buy it for 15. And I will say, that's a good value, because my anchor was at 50.
So basically, you introduce the worst possible schemes and pricing models as an arbitrary anchor or baseline for what's acceptable, so that when schemes and prices are later dialed down, it will look to people as though that's a really good offer, like they're being done a favor. We're seeing this happen to some extent with the Iron Crown event with the adjustments they made to monetization. But more importantly, in the next big Apex Legends event, when the developers introduce $5 loot boxes instead of $7, and $15 non-random direct purchases instead of $18, because they've made $7 and $18 the anchor for loot boxes and non-random direct purchases respectively, people will perceive the slightly lowered prices as a good offer. It is a classic form of psychological manipulation that game publishers have used for ages. It's how the AAA landscape has gotten so bad. When they take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, all people see is that they took 1 step back and praise them for it, but forget that the company still moved 1 step over the line. And after doing this shuffle for a number of years, lo and behold, they have slowly but surely taken 50 steps forward over the line over the last decade. All of a sudden, Horse Armor DLC looks reasonable and amazing by comparison, because the goalpost has been pushed so far forward without anyone realizing it. Anyway, yeah, you get the idea. Much of the Apex Legends community isn't buying the half-assed response from EA and Respawn, because we have been through all of this before, and this time people are ready for it and are much more keen on preemptively calling out bullshit. The publisher and the studio are going to have to do much, much better than these non-solutions moving forward to get out of situations like these, lest they flush all the goodwill Apex Legends has garnered these past few months down the toilet in one fell swoop. Now, beyond all of this, there are a number of Respawn developers who have begun to respond rather aggressively to the criticism being directed against them. But this is a whole other topic within itself that I'll cover in a future video, so stay tuned for that. For now, though, I'd love to hear what your take is on everything that's going on with Apex Legends, EA and Respawn's apology, and the adjustments they made for the last week of the Iron Crown event in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.